Okay. So, Steve, we're going to go to you first. Welcome back. You were in New York last week and or the tri-state. So good to see you again. And I had a conversation over the weekend, which I just shared with you and Tati previous to us hitting the record button, which I want to share with folks and then get your thoughts on it because I know that you too geek out on this stuff as well. But over the weekend, I was looking at various automation platforms that could help me better aggregate all the different content that I pull in from different places, whether it be newsletters, podcast transcripts, Twitter bookmarks, you name it. And I came across, obviously, amongst other things, Zapier, and shout out Philip Larkin. I love the way he builds in public in and around all the enterprise innovation that they're building with their, automation tracks. And it just seems to me, again, going back to, Snowflake Summit as well, that there are a lot of really tangible examples of AI enabled technology that really can automate different dimensions of workflows that are very much in the tedious realm and domain. And some of us, even those of us like me in particular, point the finger at myself first, who's so deep into this stuff, sometimes you forget to look at the stuff that's as simple as how do I better organize my superhuman or my Gmail interface so that I don't spend too much time looking at emails that I don't want to look at, versus those that I should look at, those that I want to look at, and how do I mash all this content up to then glean insights using the horsepower that is really no codish now, right? And the access to these models that can be turned on and off using a combination of different technologies and tools. And so, Steve, when you think about let's go mid-market to even small business. When you think about the quote unquote average CEO or executive team of companies like that and the pain and the friction associated with just running their business day to day in any environment, where does your head go when it comes to if you were sitting across from someone like that and they listed their top 3 to 5 kind of stressors? Where do you go when it comes to the advanced technology that's available today that anyone can access with a little bit of specialization, a little bit of help?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much opportunity right now for any company, small, mid-market enterprise, to automate their workflows. And automation has been around for a long time, right? And things like RPA, robotics process automation, and technologies like that. But I think that these platforms that are out there are making it so much easier to automate workflows into the various different systems or software as a service systems that companies have. And I think what is interesting is I don't think CEOs and folks that run businesses think about what can be automated. So the kind of the art of the possible in that sense is you can tap into various different backend systems like HubSpot or even customer support systems. And tools like Zapier and N8n and all these various different AI tools that are coming out makes it so much easier for business owners, business users to set that up, and companies to not only automate their workflows, but also do conversational AI into automating their workflows. So for some of the use cases that we've come across, it's things like solving the age-old problem of enabling salespeople to do their job and do data entry better, right? So, salespeople are usually on the road. I was on the road last week. It's hard when you're moving around, but talking into some sort of voice interpreter to basically update your CRM system, right? Salesforce or HubSpot or Zoho. And then on the customer support side too, right? The fact that a lot of these retail companies have different customer support systems, the ability to basically take commands and discussions and then pump them back into customer support and get that decision, whether or not it's various different technologies that are used on the back end. So it's possible. The other thing that's really interesting is MCP, A2A. Those protocols are now making it even more for AI-enabled tools, making it more enabled to do those things. And essentially, it's the software as a service companies are coming out with their own models and protocols and allowing for direct connections or third-party aggregators to basically connect it back into the system. So there's so much you can do for sure.
Yeah, Tati, I'll pass to you to see kind of where your head goes, but to just make sure that folks that are listening that they grasp that last part there, because it's a really great point you make, Steve. But the MCP and the A2A protocols effectively enable agents to talk to agents and agents to access data sets that historically were locked in silos, right? So think of the physical world of, like, imagine if all your data was in different apartment buildings and you didn't have a universal set of keys to open it up. This does that. And therefore, when you start getting excited about agents in particular and automating workflows and human augmentation, where agents and human beings can work together in a more cohesive, collaborative way, there's a lot of productivity and efficiency gains that happen, which speaks to some of the content stuff that I was thinking about over the weekend. But Tati, I don't know if you have additional thoughts or where your head goes in response to what Steve said in this area.
I was gonna make a comment that you can go into the analogy with the buildings, but you also go into the analogy with the different Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
That we look. I mean, that's all in different versions and formats, right? Which is a real thing. Every time I talk to an operator and I mention Excel spreadsheets, I get a smile. It's like a secret, like, yep, we do that. But the main thing for me, where my head goes, a couple of things. The first is that AI is not valuable if all it surfaces insights. We go back to the same old thing in operations where you're looking at reports. You need the agents, and the agentic layer really is where those insights can become action. Right, where you look at whether it's digital labor that you can assign with confidence, or you're updating SKUs, refining pricing, you're customizing CX. You can deploy this micro labor at scale, and you get efficiency and engagement both without adding that headcount, but really kind of eliminating that human bottleneck that you have there. Right, so you take away a lot of that. And I think that building this connective tissue across the data sets, which we've been talking about all along, you can not just identify the friction, not just surface, again, insights. It's the recommendation on action is redeploying labor. And labor is one component. I always talk about this. Labor is one component of productivity. There are so many of these other pieces, and Steve went into some of those other pieces that when put together, it really is the 1 + 1 = 3. Or even 1 + 1 = 5, because that's when you get the magic of the productivity that happens. They're well beyond labor. Labor is just the first frontier of this.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'll throw another one out for folks to consider, just because that was kind of the origin of my conversations over the weekend, is sometimes, it's called AI slop. There's a lot of different terms for it, but it's the content that unfortunately is the result of everybody, having, access to, let's say, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, you name it, and the ability to create content that's okay, right? Not super useful, super insightful, but it's pretty fast. And yep, I checked the box. I put something on LinkedIn, or I put it on Twitter, what have you. You're seeing a lot of that. And what's really differentiating, from AI slop to high quality content, of course, is work, and there is the labor component, to your point, Tati, as well as the insights and the interpretation of content and analysis and dot connecting. And for those CEOs and executive leaders of business of any shape and size, there's only so much time in the day that those folks can think about their content creation and all the things that happen behind the scenes to actually create the content to maintain that authenticity and the taste. And I think that was in part where this original conversation I had over the weekend was, how do people avoid the AI slop equation, but also avoid spending too much time interpreting content to develop the insights, to develop the ideas, et cetera. So I think that was kind of an interesting dimension too.
I think there's an interesting piece to that, which we've touched so many times in talking about how, that layer between insight and productivity still needs judgment. So you still, this is where governance matters, right? So is this agentic layer trained with context, not just code? Is that what you're looking when you're talking about this? What my mind goes is I saw something the other day that I thought was really interesting, and it was saying, instead of asking as an executive, what can AI do, is you start asking, what should AI own? And how do you think about that delegation? How do you start really thinking about, is delegation is not abdication. We talk about this all the time with the domain expertise and all of those pieces that are crucial for even the smallest of these pieces to come together. Otherwise, it's just very expensive noise that you're building into your systems.
Totally. And I'll give someone, if anyone that's active on Twitter, for example, you probably do the same thing that I do, right? Which is you bookmark, because there's only so much time in the day, but you see something and you know it's really valuable. And to your point, Tati, I'd love nothing more than, I know just instinctually, just because I'm such a geek in this space and I'm in it all the time, I know when something is touching the AI zeitgeist. I know when something's moving that direction. But I would love nothing more than to put that on AI to own the interpretation and try to figure out, why is Alec, bookmarking this versus all these other things, and where are the relationships and connection in the knowledge graph of the things that he's written in the past, the things that he finds interesting, and why are these bookmarks happening in this timeline and sequence, and compare that to newsletter stuff. Like, there's a lot of ownership for AI in there, for work that I really would rather not do, but it needs to get done. And I think that's a great place for AI, for sure. That's all I got, guys. All right, on to the next one. See you guys soon.
See you soon.